can let the Mexican authorities know, hey, look, we're prepared to indict these 700 officers. Get your people in line. Because the goal ultimately is to stop the fentanyl.
Yeah.
And so long as that's the goal, you need leverage. Not leverage over the criminals. They're criminals. You need leverage over the individuals providing the protection that allows those structures to operate. I previously sent you one of those schematics. This is the Sinaloa Cartel. It's 44 organizations. This is as of last year. It's 44 organizations spanning 15 states. There are no comparable structures in the United States because law enforcement would break something up like that in a minute. They're only able to operate in Mexico because they got the tacit approval of elements of the Mexican government in certain circumstances, and in other circumstances, they got express approval. You're talking about chemicals?
Yes. Sorry, the precursors.
Well, in 2019, China outlawed the production of fentanyl, and they restricted the precursors. Now, people are using the term precursor incorrectly. The precursor is the compound, the chemical that is precisely the predecessor group. So you take these three precursors, do a reaction, and you'll synthesize the fentanyl. That's not what the Chinese are selling. They're not selling precursors. They're selling the chemicals that are being used to make the precursors. Well, all of those chemicals, none of them are illegal. That's why the Chinese government is saying, what are you talking about? We can't ban stuff that's got normal commercial applications. If you've got a real chemist, or in the case of the guys in Mexico, you got 20-year-olds that are running labs. We had a chemistry professor from USC helping us. Well, that was an enormous barrier to entry. Well, today, the kids just go on the dark web. They got what are essentially recipes. So you spend $3,000 in non-regulated chemicals, and you're producing $300,000 in product. So the economics has changed profoundly. So the Chinese company, the company in South China, the chemical company that's producing the perfectly legal chemicals, they don't even know it's going to Mexico. You got a shell company out of Hong Kong purchasing the material to ship it to a shell company in Malaysia. The company in Malaysia sends it to Singapore. Singapore sends it to Indonesia. Indonesia sends it to Turkey. Turkey sends it to Spain, and it comes into Veracruz. The Chinese company has no idea where this is going. And that's the case because the United States has not charged any of the chemical companies. Every administration for the last 30 years has known that the Mexican government has been in bed. Elements of the Mexican government have been in bed with the cartels. One of the problems that we have is our country wants to attack the large cartels when in reality, you want one big one, not a bunch of small ones, because a bunch of small ones, you now enter into the picture, it's market forces, market dynamics. Once they all start competing with each other, each of them are now incentivized to sell as much product as possible because they have to raise capital. Capital, power in Mexico is defined by access to corrupt politicians. So you need money. So they have to flood the market. So if you've got 6 different organizations, they're all incentivized to raise capital, it's an enormous flooding of the market in the United States. Whereas if you have just one large cartel, they use monopoly power. And, monopolists, throughout the history of our country, the monopolists artificially inflate the prices by restricting supply. They want fat profit margins per unit. Well, if you've got 6 cartels operating, they're not making fat profit margins per unit. They're making razor thin margins. They're just making up the difference in volume. Well, we want to disincentivize volume. So you want to say, hey, look, get one big group. They're going to do what they're going to do, as long as it's not fentanyl. Because 20 years ago, Sinaloa was the largest cartel in the Western Hemisphere. Today, you've got 6 to 9 cartels, which are a fraction of their size at their peak, and you got much more product. Every time you take out a leader and the cartel structure disarticulates, it breaks down into fragments. Well, as you got fragmentation, each one of these groups start forming their own little baby cartels. The last thing you want are baby cartels running around. You want one big group, top down, chain of command, restrict the supply, make your fat profit margins per unit. So you will get less product in the United States